And we should be live. I'm sure people will be rolling in here soon. If you are rolling in, say hello in the chat. I'll actually post there too. It's always fun to see where people are streaming from as well. So if you want to say hello and maybe put where you're watching from, it's always really fun. And we'll wait a minute or so for people to join. And I'm streaming from Seattle. And where's everyone else streaming from today? Or watching from?
Yeah, I guess a day like this, we need to ask, are you on daylight savings time or not?
That's true. That's a good question.
For you or not? I'm still getting used to this. But
yeah, I always kind of forget with like colleagues in other parts of the world that, oh yeah, now we've switched. Or running events, like I've run other events with people from all over, and then they're like, why is it changed?
Yeah. How are people adjusted to the daylight saving time?
Well, this one is my favorite.
More sunlight?
One, what was that?
Oh, nothing. I was just about, do we like more sunlight in the morning or sunlight in the evening?
I kind of like it in the evening. What
Same.
about you?
I'm not a morning person, so.
Same. I'd rather have it be there when I get off of work.
Yep.
All right, so we're a couple minutes in. Let's go ahead and maybe get started. I'll do just a super quick introduction. And David, I think you have some notes you wanted to bring up before we get into the actual talk as well. So welcome to the community presentation. We'll wait again just a couple minutes for people to be rolling in. And the goal with this meeting is to share Flyte-related stories and knowledge. So today we have Xinzhou from Atomwise, which I'm really excited to see how you've implemented Flyte. And then if you're unfamiliar with Flyte, if it's your first time here, it's one of the more popular open source orchestration platforms. Again, you're going to hear about it, how it's in action today. And it's often used in machine learning and AI applications, at the core of a lot of ML pipelines. And then, if you want to check it out, if you haven't already, let me share a link in the chat as well. And if you have any interesting stories or use cases or questions about Flyte, like maybe you like what you see here today, definitely join the Slack channel as well. And if you have a story about implementing Flyte that you want to share in a presentation like this, we would love to have you on as well. And yeah, so I'm excited for this presentation today with Atomwise. They're going to talk about how they integrated Flyte into a Bazel-based monorepo and leverage Flyte's capabilities to develop scalable and versatile workflows to accelerate AI-powered drug discovery, which is a really exciting use case. Before we get into the talk, David, did you want to bring up some notes?
Yeah, a couple of things. Thank you. First is we just wrap up Hacktoberfest. This is a month-long contribution event, and this opportunity we focus on contribution to the documentation, examples, and plugins. And it was great. Thank you all who participated either by contributing or, writing code, writing docs, or reviewing, asking questions. We had 24 merge PRs in different areas of the code and docs, and also a couple of blog posts and a video tutorial. So yeah, great. Again, thank you so much. And we'll be reaching out to each one of the contributors to confirm the achievement of the swag. And second thing, we'll have a talk if anyone here is local to Munich. We'll have a talk at the local Kubernetes and Cloud Native meetup there. This time will be Katrina leading a session on, let me see, how to build production-grade ML workflows on Kubernetes with Flyte. Posting here the link to the event, and I'll post it also on LinkedIn. So if you're local to the Munich area, it will be great to see you. It's Wednesday next week, November 13th. So I hope to see you there. And yeah, with that, over to you, Sage.
I think with that, really, I think we're ready for the presentation if we want to get started.
You're right. So welcome, Xinzhou.
Cool. Thanks, David and Sage. Those were very exciting announcements, and thanks for the warm introduction. My name is Xinzhou Liu. I'm a software engineer at Atomwise. My talk today is about how we leverage Flyte as our powerhouse to accelerate our drug discovery process. Here I'm going to share the challenges we overcame migrating our tech stack to Flyte, the learning curve we went through optimizing the workflow, and the positive results it has brought us. Lastly, the feedback from our Flyte journey that might help others in the community. Mostly I will just in the interest of time, I will keep most of my talk at high level, but I do plan. I would like actually share some of our real code examples to help the community like materialize like the work we did at Atomwise. So here's the layout of my talk today. What do we do at Atomwise? For those who are not familiar with our team, we are an AI-driven drug discovery company that aims to harness the power of AI to discover better quality medicine faster than traditional methods. We use we use our state-of-the-art machine learning platform called AtomNet, combined with in vitro lab experiments to predict and identify most potent drug candidates against certain diseases. So we search, so we call this process virtual screening because this process will allow us to basically search potent drug candidates among a library of potential trillions of synthesizable compounds. So an overview of our research and development life cycle is here in this diagram. As you can see, we start with our model architecture and algorithm development in parallel with the data preparation for training our models. And then we train our models. Here, the models we train there are a variety of models that we train. The models can be single task models or multitask models. And then after models are trained, and we deploy models to production, where we designed our virtual screening workflows using the models and other scientific tools to effectively screen the drug chemical space. And after the workflow has been developed and benchmarked, we deploy them to the production environment where our medchem scientists can utilize the workflows to perform actual drug screening. And the results, the potential drug candidates identified from virtual screening will be sent to our lab partners for experimental validation. And the data we collected from the lab validation will be fed back to the research and development lifecycle. So the process and iteration goes on. So you may ask, where does Flyte come into play in this picture, actually currently most of our drug discovery steps are powered by Flyte, as I will explain more in the later slides. And so why did we choose Flyte? A simple reason is that we just want one workflow engine that works for all our use cases. We used to have different workflow engines for different use cases. They have become very difficult to maintain and standardize due to our small team size. We used to use MLflow and AWS Batch for model training. We use Argo for ad hoc HPC environment to run some custom tasks. We also develop internal workflow engines for model inference and virtual screening workflows. So we really wanted to consolidate the multiple workflow engines into one, and we found out that Flyte checks out all the use cases. Other than that, what we really like, the reasons to choose Flyte is also that Flyte is Python, I would say Python native, which fits our monorepo code base, which is mostly in Python. It supports machine learning operations and scientific computing tasks. It actually provides little to no infrastructure management overhead, so we don't have to worry about setting up additional infrastructure. It's very scalable. It allows us to scale vertically and horizontally. Lastly, it has a very active community that's constantly contributing to the development of Flyte. So as you can see, these are the major reasons we chose to go with Flyte. I see some questions in the chat. I can address them now, or maybe actually I have I leave some time in the end for us to ask questions and to address the questions. For now, I can just move on. So and so what we have achieved with Flyte ever since after we migrated our workflow frameworks to Flyte, we were able to focus more on developing and designing business logic instead of spending time and resources on setting up infrastructure. And we had much faster research prototyping cycle that allowed us to develop state-of-the-art, very efficient virtual screening workflows, and within a matter of days, and cut down from weeks as previously with our legacy system. This faster research prototyping comes naturally with faster production. We actually were able to deploy multiple AIDD workflows within a matter of weeks compared to quarters before. And lastly, we can customize the resources for different workflows to make the workflow more cost efficient. So overall, Flyte helped us achieve faster development and production lifecycle, reduce management overhead, and optimize resource cost. So here are three major workflows I'd like to showcase that are powered by Flyte. These workflows are designed for our use cases of machine learning operations and other scientific computing tasks. The first the workflow framework I'd like to talk about is Melody. It actually has a beautiful name, which stands for Machine Learning Operations and Data Science Library. It specializes in model training, deployment, and inference. That also comes with advanced data handling, processing, and visualization functionality. Second is Feather. It is a very powerful workflow that specializes in protein and compound proteins and protein and compound docking structure embedding, and also as well as utilizing AtomNet for model inference. The reason why we do the structure embedding and docking is because we need to prepare the data for feeding to the models for inference. Lastly is Lego. As the name suggests, it's a modular workflow that can be multitasked to use for virtual screening, and it consists of variety of reusable building blocks. The building blocks can be single tasks like RDKit functions, or slightly more complex sub workflows like Feather and Melody, as mentioned earlier. And now I'm going to describe how each workflow works and how they leverage Flyte. So first of all, Melody, which is the model training framework, it actually has a very smart way of utilizing Flyte plus additional capabilities. So it actually converts. So the input for Melody is, of course, like some data files, as well as a config file, which is in YAML, and the users can define the tasks in the YAML file, as well as the task dependency. And then Melody will use the lightweight pedantic wrapper for each task and convert them into Flyte tasks. And then after the tasks being converted to Flyte tasks, it constructs a dynamic workflow from those tasks using Flyte's famous imperative workflow feature. So here are some common tasks as you might have come across in your own workflows. For the usage of AtomNet, we have AtomNet training, scoring, and inferencing tasks. For data handling, we have the data aggregation, splitting, querying. For visualization, we have the plotting tasks, and as well as the model artifacts, where we deploy the model to production environment. So these are just very small subset of examples of what Melody can do. And for all these tasks, Melody will convert them into Flyte and then construct a workflow based on the task dependencies defined in the YAML file, just like a composer composes melody notes into beautiful music. Here, I'd like to show an example of what it looks like from the Flyte UI for running Melody. As you can see that these each individual Flyte node is a task. So just want to point out some examples, like we have training and testing, data split, and cross-validation. We have scoring and training our models with AtomNet, and also scikit-learn, etc., and so many other tasks. All these tasks are executed in a highly distributed way as Flyte has provided us. And the model training is distributed and can be scaled out to about 50 large GPU instances with spot availability. The workflow is performant, yet cost efficient due to the nice feature from Flyte, which is the resource overriding at runtime. And as for Feather, which is the production model inference workflow, it performs several tasks very well, such as the fast docking techniques, which is used to prepare the data for model inference, and then you will run the model inference using AtomNet. The workflow is highly parallelized thanks to the asynchronous nature of the Flyte's dynamic task as well as the map task. So the workflow looks like this. The scheduler first intelligently detects the input compounds, and it will split the compounds into batches, and each batch is processed by a worker, which is actually a Flyte task. And the worker will perform these tasks, and in the end, the predicted scores from the model inference will be aggregated and filtered based on the constraint, the criteria and constraint provided by user. The resource is actually mostly optimized based on our years of trials and tribulation. We were able to find a way to optimize the resources used by the workers depending on the input parameters. And lastly, I would like to point out that with Flyte, we don't need to set up additional infrastructure compared to unlike previously, where with our legacy system we had to maintain a group of active Kubernetes pods as well as some Redis queues to process large workload in parallel. The lastly is the Lego workflow, which, as I mentioned, is our core workflow for production drug discovery activities. And Lego uses the compounds as its currency that flows throughout the entire workflow from task to task. It is it's built on top of Flyte, so it's a modular workflow with the right amount of abstraction. It provides no-code configuration where, similar to Melody, users just need to define their tasks and the task dependency for their within their workflow in a YAML file, and then Lego will parse the YAML file into Flyte objects. And it's easy with this framework. It's very easy to experiment different types of workflow with well-tested building blocks, such as the tasks I mentioned and task and sub workflows mentioned earlier. And after that, the workflow, as you can see, the workflow is then translated into Flyte and then submitted to Flyte and executed remotely in Kubernetes cluster. And it's super easy to run. All you need is the YAML file. This is a CLI tool that we created. You only need is the YAML file and compound file and some metadata, and then you will get the results back. Here's a little more details on the YAML config. As you can see, we can in this config, users specify the workflow structure. Here is a simple sequential structure where it will run 3 tasks, like search analogs, score the compounds using feather, and filter the scores from the model inference. In the second section, it will the second section so basically customize the parameters for each task. There's also is done task, which is a little bit more complicated. It actually checks whether certain conditions have been met to decide whether to continue the iteration or not. And that's translated into a workflow on Flyte. As you can see that these tasks are running in a distributed fashion. Okay, so those are the workflows that we designed and implemented at Atomwise. I would like to shift gear a little bit to talk about how we reached this step. Obviously, it was it was not sunshine and rainbow all the way during our migration journey, but we did actually run into a few challenges when we migrated our tech stack into Flyte. Here, with interest of time, I won't go into all the details. I just I picked out 2 the most challenging the tasks that we ran into. The first is to integrate Flyte into our monorepo. Our monorepo is run by Bazel, and we need an end-to-end automated solution for registering and executing Flyte frameworks. The second challenge is we had some specific use cases that are not currently supported by Flyte, so we had to add some customization. Here I use Lego as an example. I might not get to this part before running out of time. But I will try my best. So for the Bazel integration, if you're not familiar with Bazel, some people call it Bazel. It's up to how to pronounce it. So it's actually a very nice open source build tool that can automate build and tests, as well as manages dependencies across different projects in the monorepo. And the general pattern for running a Bazel, running a Python script in this Bazel-based monorepo is like this. So you have a Python script that does something, and you just build. Here I'm just go through a crash course of how Bazel works, and you build a Bazel target using the source code of that script and some dependencies of that script, and then you can just run it in one command. So what does this have to do with Flyte? Because we wanted Flyte to achieve the same execution pattern as the rest of our Python script. So, basically, we wanted to execute the Flyte workflow just like a normal Python script using the Bazel command. And to achieve this was not easy. There's just been trials and tribulations. Since there's not much documentation or examples online to refer to, we had to piece some techniques and code we can find from either from the community or from some online articles to design using a creative way, but to run the Flyte with Bazel. And the most challenging part we found is the registration. Here, I'm just would dive a little bit deep into the weeds. So I would like to share some challenges we run into and the tricks up our sleeves to solve those challenges. First, that is Bazel does not have a very flexible way of creating container images for different scripts within a same target. So that means that the Flyte workflow, if you want to create different container images for different Flyte tasks in the same workflow, it's very hard. What we did as a workaround is to just create a single container image per workflow and use the image digest as the unique identifier for that workflow to identify that image as the workflow image. Secondly, as you may have run into an issue with registering the workflow in a work directory. So we actually discovered while analyzing Flyte codebase, Flyte source code, is that so Flyte had a way to detect the project root by traversing the module workspace all the way to the top, where there's I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is there's when the top level init script, but Bazel actually added in the Bazel build files. The Bazel actually added an extra init script, which actually causes Flyte to traverse out of band, outside of the module workspace. So what we did to solve this problem is to basically mask the init script, the top level init script added by Bazel, so that Flyte can find the correct project root. And the third thing is we override the task resolver location in the image to standardize the path so that each image, we can create symlink in each image to point to the correct task resolver path. And lastly is the versioning. We just use, for our production workflows, we use git commit as the top level workflow version. In the end, we were able to run the Flyte task and the workflow in a Bazel build image. So now, after the Bazel integration, we also wanted to automate the registration and execution steps, because we wanted to run the workflow in one command. So here's what we did with the automation. We created a controller class that basically bootstraps the registration and execution steps. For the registration step, it first checks. Here's a little bit of code example. At a high level, I remove some of the unnecessary details. So it first checks whether this workflow has been registered. If it's not registered, it will continue to register the workflow. And based on the type of the workflow, it will either register that as imperative or a static. So to detect whether the workflow has been registered or not, it checks the entity of the workflow, and based on the entity type, and it will try to fetch the workflow. If it cannot be fetched, then means that it has not been implemented. All right. So as for execution, it basically executes, the controller executes the workflow either locally or remotely. And for local execution, it just executes the workflow like normal Python functions. And as for remote execution, it first register the workflow and then submit the workflow to Flyte, and then wait for the results. Okay, so what it's like, so with all the automation, what it looks like from an end-to-end process of running a Flyte workflow in Bazel. First, here's you have some workflow code. It could be like one script or multiple scripts where you define the workflow and its member tasks. And we created a Bazel macro that can package the workflow source code as well as its dependency into container image like automatically, and then you just need to import this Bazel target into your execution script, where the execution script just imports the controller, and the controller only needs to call the execute function to register and submit the workflow to Flyte and wait for the results. So in the end, we were able to run the entire the Flyte workflow just using one command. Yeah, we thought about open sourcing the Bazel integration, but there's some technical challenges that we have to address in order to open source it. But it's doable in the future. So yeah, I don't know if we have time. If we have, I think we might still have time. I'll just, without diving too much into detail, I'd like to just here's the second challenge that we faced, which is the workflow customization. I'm gonna just briefly talk about it. So in Lego, as I mentioned earlier, it provides no code configuration, and it also implements some complex workflow structure that's not supported by Flyte, and also it enables dynamic scaling. Yeah. So yeah, for the no code configuration, the YAML file is like this. And what we did with this YAML file is that we created a robust config parser to construct to basically parse the YAML into Flyte tasks and use the Flyte tasks as building blocks to construct a potentially complex workflow using some Pydantic features. So the workflow will be turning into for this workflow, will be turning into the loop. And the loop there's some loop or workflow structures were not supported by Flyte when the time we migrated. For example, like there was not a very organic way of implementing a conditional while loop. So what we did here is to just use a helper Flyte tasks to determine whether certain conditions have been met. And so, this is like a helper task. So it checks whether the condition has been met. If met, and then means it's done is true, and it will return the results. Otherwise, you will start another iteration, and the cycle goes on. Maybe actually, recently we discovered that eager workflow actually can abstract a lot of these logics. So that maybe like this can help us in the future when we use the eager workflow. Yeah, lastly is the scaling. Flyte has very nice way to have different nice ways to scale up and scale out the resources. And for vertical scaling, we use some empirical formula to scale up the resources for a single task, and also we utilizes the dynamic task as well as the map task to scale out the workflow, the tasks in workflow. Okay, so these are actually there's so much more to share, but we don't have too much time here. But we're happy to follow up with some discussions. And in the end, I would like to summarize what we have learned and experienced with Flyte based on our user and developer experience. First of all, we really love using Flyte. I think it's been a game changer. So like it's like I mentioned, it's Python native. It has like implicit DAG workflow architecture. It provides scalability, and we really love the data type checking. It provides out-of-box web UI that we don't have bandwidth to develop. The code base is well documented, and it has a vibrant community that are willing to jump in to help and provide guidance. Although Flyte is great, we wish that there could be it could be further improved. Mostly in our use cases, that we found that it'll be great to fix some the UI bugs that could benefit our users. For example, that we found out that the node, the task name can actually somehow cannot be overridden. The way we worked around this is to override the node names instead. So if fixing this would actually, but overriding the node names would actually create some complication. So yeah, fixing the UI bugs will be beneficial. And lastly, that there's some nice things I think it would be nice to have, such as overriding the part template, because currently you can only override the task config. And since we're migrating away from test config plugin for the pod configuration and use pod template instead, it would be nice to add this feature. And the object-oriented programming support would be actually tremendously beneficial for Lego. The eager workflow, making eager workflow out of experimental state and make it a stable feature would be beneficial as well. And in the end, lastly, we actually discover some use cases for execute a group of subtasks locally in a remote parent task. So maybe maybe in the future we can have this feature as well. So to wrap up my talk, I would like to thank all the people who have made this incredible journey possible. First of all, I would like to thank our Atomwise team. We are a group of we're a group of talented engineers and scientists who have put craftsmanship and creativity into designing and implementing complex yet scalable workflows. I'd like to thank Union team for overseeing the Flyte development and steering the roadmaps. As well, lastly, I'd like to extend the thanks to the entire community for offering collective wisdom and advice and help. So we really look forward to working with the community to bring Flyte to the next level in the bigger and brighter future. And thank you. Now I would like to address some questions in the chat.
Yeah, again, thank you. I mean, that was a great presentation. Thinking we can move over the first question. Are you using PLMs?
I'm not sure we are directly using PLMs in our drug discovery workflows. We have used, so our models are mostly structure models that will actually predict the potency of the drug binding to a target using the structures and sometimes sequences of. I don't think we're using protein language models directly. Maybe we are researching it.
All right, thank you. So, yeah, let's move to the next one. Why did you write YAML to build Python workflows? Who is the end user?
Yeah, so the end user is really, we have actually two groups of users, but we have users who are medchem scientists who don't necessarily know coding. So that's why we offer this like no code configuration for those users. I think we found that YAML is a very simple and straightforward way for building to customize the workflows.
Thank you. Next one. This is more a comment from Gwendon. You can already execute subtasks locally in a remote task.
Yeah, I actually didn't know about that. That'd be great because we created a workaround for that by wrapping the task decorator in a wrapper that actually basically implement this logic. So yeah, it'd be nice to not reinvent the wheel. So we will look into that if anyone can drop the link to for that use case.
Yeah, we'll find it and we'll drop it here and also I'll send it to you. For sure. All right, next question. How many users use this platform at your company?
Our users are our internal scientists. So we just have our internal we use, so it's used by most of our internal medchem scientists as well as our machine learning research scientists. So it's all like directly, and we have, like I mentioned, like there are two types of users, right? Like one is users who don't necessarily know coding, and the other group is the users who specialized in both code, like engineering and also machine learning algorithm development. So that's why we have command line tools for the users, the first group of users, and we created APIs for the second group of users.
Also, while other questions are maybe rolling in, I wanted to say whoever came up with all the names at your company did an amazing job. Like Melody, Lego, all fantastic names for internal tools.
Yeah. So the names are, I'll say, very accurate and descriptive. It's easy to remember. So like, just our I don't know if they're listening. So the scientists just want to shout out some names. Brad is the lead on our Melody workflow framework. Adrian Morrison is the lead on our Feather workflow, and I'm also leading the Lego workflow. So yeah, it's an amazing team that can pull all these challenging yet robust workflows together.
Yeah, thank you for sharing so much about the workflows. That was really great. And you brought up several things that we love to see and often hear about with Flyte adoption, like how it allows you to focus on building in the business logic, the tools, without really thinking about the infrastructure. You'd mentioned speed too. I think you said research went from weeks to days and deployment went from quarters to weeks. That's awesome to hear. And you also mentioned cost savings from the resource allocation. Like it's always really cool to see people implement that in their workflows and all those things that you get with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like we don't want to use like H100 every time. So like it's just one example. So that's why I think those customization and capabilities really allows us to take our research to the next level.
Amazing. Are there any other questions from anyone tuning in? Put them in the chat. I know one question that often gets asked, and I think you kind of already brought up in one of the slides too, is if you're able to share a little bit more about maybe the size of the GPU cluster you're using. But I think you mentioned like you have like 50 A10s that you often use.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So we scale out. We can scale out to about like 50 A10 GPU instances. I think there's some optimization after trials and errors. That's probably also there's some due to some constraints. That's the scalability we have. Obviously, this is subject to changes in the future.
Awesome.
Cool.
If there's no other questions, we'll probably wrap up the live stream here. But thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you for everyone who attended. And the recording will be at the, if you're watching this on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can go back to that same link and watch the recording too. If you're just tuning in now and you want to go back to the beginning and see the fantastic presentation, you can do so. And otherwise, I think we'll probably wrap up unless there's something else, David, that we want to mention before we go. Go check out Flyte. Go check out the Flyte community. Those links are in the description and in the chat previously if you want to join the Slack. Be part of that amazing community that you were talking about in the presentation, right? Where it's a fantastic active community where you can ask questions in that Slack and someone's going to answer it and help you figure out what you need to.
Again, thank you, Xinzhou.
Exactly.
It's awesome to learn all the stuff.
Thank you, guys.
And yeah, for everyone else, hope to see you in the next one that will take place on December 3. So any of you want to share here your journey with Flyte, with your learning, the door is open. Just let us know. So
Yeah, we're always happy to All right, I'm going to hit end on the stream. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you for